The study of women in the life of Jesus offers profound insights into his ministry and the transformative nature of his interactions with individuals across different social and cultural backgrounds. In the context of first-century Judea, women were often marginalized and relegated to roles that did not afford them significant social or religious influence. Despite these societal constraints, the Gospels present numerous accounts of Jesus' encounters with women, showcasing his revolutionary approach to inclusivity and equality. During Jesus' time, the socio-religious landscape was heavily patriarchal. Women were generally excluded from formal religious education and leadership positions within the Jewish faith. They were often seen primarily in domestic roles, responsible for household management and raising children. Public interaction with men, especially for religious leaders, was limited and governed by strict social norms. Against this backdrop, Jesus' interactions with women were strikingly countercultural and indicative of a broader message of redemption and acceptance. The significance of women in Jesus' life can be seen from the beginning of his earthly existence. Women are prominently featured in his genealogy, a notable inclusion given the patriarchal context of the time. These women, such as Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and Bathsheba, are not merely ancillary figures, but central characters in the unfolding story of God's plan for humanity. Their inclusion in the genealogy highlights the important roles they played and sets a precedent for the value Jesus would place on women throughout his ministry. The Virgin Mary, Jesus' mother, is perhaps the most significant woman in his life, embodying faith, obedience, and maternal devotion. Her willing acceptance of God's plan marks the inception of the Incarnation, and her presence throughout Jesus' life and ministry exemplifies a model of discipleship and faithfulness. Beyond his familial relationships, Jesus' ministry frequently intersected with the lives of various women, each encounter providing profound lessons on faith, redemption, and the breaking of social barriers. From Mary Magdalene, a devoted follower who witnessed both the crucifixion and the resurrection, to the Samaritan woman at the well, whose transformative encounter with Jesus led her to become an evangelist to her community, each story underscores the inclusive nature of Jesus' message. Furthermore, Jesus' parables and teachings often featured women, affirming their value and dignity in the eyes of God. He praised the faith of women like the Canaanite woman, forgave the woman caught in adultery, and commended the widow's offering, challenging societal norms and expectations. The Gospel's portrayal of women in Jesus' life highlights their importance and serves as a foundation for understanding the early Christian community's approach to gender roles and inclusivity. Women were among Jesus' most faithful followers and were entrusted with the crucial role of bearing witness to the resurrection, the cornerstone of the Christian faith. In examining the various women who encountered Jesus, this report aims to delve into their stories, exploring how these interactions reveal Jesus' radical approach to gender and social status. By doing so, it seeks to provide a comprehensive understanding of the indispensable role women played in Jesus' life and ministry, offering valuable insights into the inclusive nature of his message and the transformative power of his interactions. The genealogy of Jesus, as recorded in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, holds significant theological and historical importance. Unlike many ancient genealogies, which predominantly feature male descendants, the genealogy of Jesus includes several women. These women are not merely incidental figures, but pivotal characters whose stories contribute profoundly to the unfolding narrative of God's redemptive plan. Their inclusion underscores the inclusive nature of the gospel and highlights God's use of unexpected individuals to fulfill divine purposes. Tamar's story is found in Genesis 38. She was the daughter-in-law of Judah, one of the 12 sons of Jacob. After the death of her first two husbands, and Onan, who were Judah's sons, Tamar was left childless. Judah failed to provide her with his third son, Shelah, as was customary in levirate marriage. Taking matters into her own hands, Tamar disguised herself as a prostitute and conceived twins, Perez and Zerah, by Judah. Her determination to secure her place and preserve her deceased husband's lineage demonstrated her resourcefulness and courage. Tamar's inclusion in Jesus' genealogy highlights themes of justice and righteousness, as her actions led to the continuation of Judah's line, from which King David and ultimately Jesus descended. Rahab, a Canaanite woman and a prostitute living in Jericho, played a crucial role during the Israelite conquest of the Promised Land, Joshua 2. When Israelite spies sought refuge in her house, Rahab hid them from the authorities and helped them escape, declaring her faith in the God of Israel. In return, the spies promised to spare her and her family during the city's destruction. Rahab's faith and actions were pivotal, leading to her inclusion among the ancestors of Jesus. Her story illustrates the transformative power of faith and God's willingness to incorporate even those from outside Israel into the divine plan. Ruth, a Moabite woman, is the central figure in the book of Ruth. After the death of her husband, she chose to stay with her mother-in-law, Naomi, and embrace the God of Israel. Ruth's loyalty and devotion are evident when she declares, "Your people will be my people, and your God my God." Ruth 1:16. She later married Boaz, a kinsman redeemer, and became the great-grandmother of King David. Ruth's story underscores themes of loyalty, redemption, and God's providential care. Her inclusion in Jesus' genealogy emphasizes the universality of God's grace, extending beyond ethnic and national boundaries. Bathsheba, originally the wife of Uriah the Hittite, became the wife of King David after a tragic series of events involving adultery and murder. 2 Samuel 11:12. Despite the scandalous nature of their union, Bathsheba later became the mother of Solomon, one of Israel's greatest kings and an ancestor of Jesus. Her story is complex, marked by personal loss and royal intrigue. Bathsheba's inclusion in the genealogy highlights God's ability to bring redemption and purpose out of human sin and failure, and it underscores the role of women in the lineage of the Messiah. Mary, the mother of Jesus, holds a singular place in the genealogy and the entire narrative of the New Testament. Chosen by God to bear the Messiah, her story begins with the Annunciation, where the angel Gabriel announces that she will conceive a child by the Holy Spirit. Luke 1:26-38. Mary's response, "I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled," Luke 1:38, exemplifies her faith and obedience. Throughout Jesus' life, Mary remains a devoted mother and disciple, witnessing his ministry, suffering, death, and resurrection. Her inclusion in the genealogy and the central role she plays in Jesus' life emphasize her unique position in salvation history and her model of faithful submission to God's will. Mary, the mother of Jesus Mary, the mother of Jesus, holds a unique and exalted place within Christian theology and history. Her story, which begins with the Annunciation and extends through Jesus' life, ministry, and beyond, is rich with themes of faith, obedience, and maternal devotion. As the chosen vessel for the Incarnation, Mary's role is unparalleled, and her life offers profound lessons for believers. The Annunciation. The Annunciation marks the beginning of Mary's pivotal role in salvation history. According to the Gospel of Luke, the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary, a young virgin betrothed to Joseph, with a startling message. She was to conceive and bear a son by the Holy Spirit, and he would be the Son of God. Luke 1:26-38. Mary's response, "I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled," Luke 1:38, exemplifies her profound faith and willingness to accept God's plan, despite the potential social and personal ramifications. The Visitation. Following the Annunciation, Mary visited her cousin Elizabeth, who was also miraculously pregnant with John the Baptist. Luke 1:39-56. This encounter, known as the Visitation, is significant for several reasons. Elizabeth's greeting, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the child you will bear," Luke 1:42, affirms Mary's blessed status and the divine nature of her child. In response, Mary sings the Magnificat, Luke 1:46-55, a hymn of praise that highlights God's mercy, the fulfillment of divine promises, and the uplifting of the humble. This moment underscores Mary's deep spirituality and her recognition of God's work in her life. The Nativity and Early Life of Jesus. Mary's role in the birth and early life of Jesus is central. The Nativity story, as recounted in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, depicts Mary as a devoted and nurturing mother. She and Joseph travel to Bethlehem, where Jesus is born in humble circumstances and laid in a manger. Luke 2:1-7. The visit of the shepherds and the Magi, Matthew 2:1-12, further highlights the significance of Jesus' birth. Mary's contemplative nature is noted when she treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart, Luke 2:19, reflecting her thoughtful and meditative approach to the extraordinary events unfolding around her. The presentation at the temple. When Jesus is presented at the temple in Jerusalem, Mary and Joseph encounter Simeon and Anna, two devout individuals who recognize Jesus as the Messiah. Luke 2:22-38. Simeon's prophetic words to Mary, "And a sword will pierce your soul too," Luke 2:35, foreshadow the future suffering she will endure. This moment underscores the intertwining of joy and sorrow in Mary's life and highlights her continued faithfulness to God's plan. The wedding at Cana. Mary's role in the miracle at the wedding in Cana, recorded in the Gospel of John, is significant. When the wine runs out at the wedding feast, Mary informs Jesus of the situation and implicitly trusts him to address it. John 2:1-11. Jesus' first public miracle, turning water into wine, occurs at Mary's prompting, demonstrating her influence and faith in his divine mission. This event marks the beginning of Jesus' public ministry and underscores the special relationship between Mary and her son. Mary during Jesus' ministry. While the Gospels do not provide extensive details about Mary's involvement during Jesus' ministry, several key moments illustrate her continued presence and support. In Mark 3:31, 35, and Matthew 12:46, 50, Jesus acknowledges his family, but emphasizes the spiritual kinship of those who do God's will. This passage highlights the transition from biological to spiritual family, with Mary remaining a pivotal figure within the broader community of believers. The Crucifixion. Mary's presence at the Crucifixion is one of the most poignant aspects of her story. As Jesus hangs on the cross, he entrusts Mary to the care of the beloved disciple John, saying, "Woman, here is your son," and to John, "Here is your mother." John 19:26-27. This moment signifies Jesus' concern for his mother's well-being and establishes a new familial bond within the early Christian community. Mary's suffering at the foot of the cross fulfills Simeon's prophecy and highlights her unwavering faith and maternal devotion, even in the face of immense sorrow. The resurrection and beyond Mary's role extends beyond the crucifixion to the resurrection and the early church. Although she is not mentioned in the resurrection narratives, her presence among the disciples in the upper room, awaiting the coming of the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, Acts 1:14, signifies her continued importance in the nascent Christian community. Tradition holds that Mary remained a revered figure among the early Christians, embodying the qualities of faith, obedience, and discipleship. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is a figure of immense theological and spiritual significance. Her story, from the Annunciation to the early church, is a testament to her profound faith, obedience, and maternal love. As the chosen mother of the Messiah, she played a unique role in God's redemptive plan, offering a model of discipleship for all believers. Mary's life and legacy continue to inspire and resonate within the Christian tradition, underscoring the enduring importance of her role in salvation history. Mary Magdalene is one of the most significant and intriguing figures in the New Testament. Her life and experiences with Jesus provide profound insights into discipleship, redemption, and the role of women in the early Christian community. She is mentioned in all four Gospels, and her story is marked by her transformation from a troubled past to becoming a devoted follower of Jesus, witnessing both his crucifixion and resurrection. Background and introduction. Mary Magdalene is often identified as coming from the town of Magdala, located on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee. The Gospels first introduce her in the context of her healing by Jesus, who cast out 7 demons from her, Luke 8:2, Mark 16:9. This act of deliverance signifies a profound transformation and marks the beginning of her unwavering commitment to Jesus. A devoted follower of Jesus. After her healing, Mary Magdalene became a dedicated follower of Jesus. Along with other women, she traveled with Jesus and his disciples, providing for them out of her resources. Luke 8:1-3. This group of women, including Mary, Joanna, and Susanna, played a crucial role in supporting Jesus' ministry. Their presence and contribution highlight the active participation of women in the early Jesus movement, a notable departure from the traditional gender roles of the time. Key events in Mary's life. Witness to the crucifixion. Mary Magdalene's loyalty to Jesus is most evident during the events of the crucifixion. Despite the danger and sorrow, she remained present at the foot of the cross, alongside Mary, the mother of Jesus, and other women. John 19:25, Matthew 27:55-56, Mark 15:40. Her presence during this agonizing moment underscores her courage and steadfastness. Unlike many of Jesus' male disciples who fled, Mary Magdalene and the other women stood by Jesus, providing a powerful testament to their faithfulness. Witness to the burial. Mary Magdalene also witnessed Jesus' burial. After his death, she, along with Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, followed Joseph of Arimathea to see the tomb where Jesus' body was laid. Matthew 27:61, Mark 15:47. This act of devotion ensured that they knew the exact location of the tomb, which would be significant for the events to come. First, witness to the resurrection. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Mary Magdalene's story is her role as the first witness to the resurrection. All four Gospels record her visit to the tomb on the morning of the third day after Jesus' crucifixion. According to John 20:1-18, Mary Magdalene arrived at the tomb early while it was still dark and found the stone rolled away. Distressed by the empty tomb, she ran to inform Peter and John. After they had come and gone, she remained outside the tomb, weeping. In a profound and personal encounter, the risen Jesus appeared to Mary Magdalene. Initially, she did not recognize him, mistaking him for the gardener. When Jesus called her by name, Mary, she turned and exclaimed, "Rabboni," which means teacher, John 20:16. This moment of recognition and the subsequent command from Jesus to go and tell the disciples marked Mary as the first herald of the resurrection. She obeyed, announcing to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord," John 20:18. Misconceptions and recent scholarship. Over the centuries, Mary Magdalene's image has been conflated with other women in the Gospels, leading to various misconceptions. For instance, she has often been mistakenly identified as the unnamed sinful woman who anointed Jesus' feet in Luke 7:36-50. This confusion, coupled with the association of her with prostitution, has obscured her true significance. Recent scholarship and re-evaluation of the biblical texts have sought to reclaim Mary Magdalene's rightful place in the gospel narratives. Scholars emphasize her role as a prominent disciple and the first witness to the resurrection, rather than a reformed sinner. This renewed focus highlights her importance in the early Christian community and challenges traditional interpretations that have marginalized her contributions. Mary Magdalene's journey from demonic possession to dedicated discipleship, her unwavering presence at the crucifixion and burial, and her pivotal role as the first witness to the resurrection underscore her extraordinary significance in the New Testament. Her story is one of transformation, loyalty, and proclamation, offering a powerful example of faith and devotion. Mary Magdalene's legacy continues to inspire believers, affirming the profound and active role of women in the life and ministry of Jesus and the early Christian church. Martha and Mary of Bethany Martha and Mary of Bethany are two prominent figures in the New Testament, known for their close relationship with Jesus and their distinct personalities. Their story is primarily found in the Gospels of Luke and John, where they are depicted in interactions with Jesus that reveal important spiritual lessons. The sisters, along with their brother Lazarus, lived in the village of Bethany near Jerusalem and were dear friends of Jesus. The distinct personalities of Martha and Mary are often contrasted in the Gospels, each embodying different aspects of discipleship and devotion. Martha is portrayed as practical and action-oriented, while Mary is shown as contemplative and spiritually attentive. Jesus' visit to Martha and Mary. One of the most well-known stories involving Martha and Mary is found in Luke 10:38-42. During a visit by Jesus to their home, Martha is described as being distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. Luke 10:40. She becomes frustrated when she sees her sister Mary sitting at Jesus' feet, listening to his teaching instead of helping with the household tasks. Martha asks Jesus to tell Mary to assist her. Jesus' response is gentle but profound. "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Luke 10:41-42. This interaction highlights several key points. Prioritizing spiritual nourishment. Jesus affirms the importance of prioritizing spiritual nourishment and attentiveness to his teaching over the busyness of daily tasks. Mary's choice to sit at Jesus' feet symbolizes a deep desire to learn and grow in faith. Balance in discipleship. While Jesus' response suggests that Mary's contemplative approach is commendable, it does not diminish the value of Martha's service. Instead, it calls for a balance between action and contemplation, illustrating that both aspects are essential in the life of a disciple. The raising of Lazarus. Another significant event involving Martha and Mary is the raising of their brother Lazarus from the dead, as recorded in John 11:1-44. This story further reveals the distinct personalities of the sisters and their faith in Jesus. When Lazarus falls ill, Martha and Mary send word to Jesus, hoping he will come and heal their brother. However, Jesus delays his arrival, and by the time he reaches Bethany, Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. Martha's encounter with Jesus. Upon hearing that Jesus is approaching, Martha goes out to meet him. Her initial words express a mixture of faith and disappointment. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." John 11:21-22. This statement shows Martha's faith in Jesus' power and her hope despite her grief. Jesus responds with a profound declaration, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this?" John 11:25-26. Martha's reply, "Yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." John 11:27. Is a remarkable confession of faith, recognizing Jesus' divine identity and mission. Mary's encounter with Jesus Mary, on the other hand, stays at home initially. When she finally goes to meet Jesus, she falls at his feet, weeping, and repeats Martha's earlier sentiment. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." John 11:32. Mary's deep emotion moves Jesus, who is also deeply troubled and weeps with her. John 11:33-35. This moment highlights Jesus' compassion and empathy, as well as the profound human connection he shares with Mary. The miracle. The climax of the story is the miracle of raising Lazarus from the dead. Jesus goes to the tomb, prays to the Father, and then calls Lazarus to come out. Lazarus emerges from the tomb alive, demonstrating Jesus' authority over death and foreshadowing his resurrection. This miracle strengthens the faith of Martha, Mary, and all who witness it, underscoring the power and divinity of Jesus. Lessons from Martha and Mary. The stories of Martha and Mary of Bethany offer several important lessons for contemporary believers: balance of service and contemplation. The contrast between Martha's service and Mary's contemplation underscores the need for balance in discipleship. Both action and reflection are vital in a life of faith. Faith in the face of grief. Martha and Mary's interactions with Jesus during their brother's illness and death reveal different but equally valid expressions of faith. Martha's proactive engagement and Mary's heartfelt lamentation both draw Jesus' compassionate response. Jesus' compassion and power. The raising of Lazarus highlights Jesus' deep empathy and his divine power over life and death, assuring his ability to bring hope and restoration in the darkest circumstances. Martha and Mary of Bethany are exemplary figures in the Gospels, each offering unique insights into discipleship and faith. Their stories of hospitality, grief, and resurrection emphasize the importance of balancing service and spiritual attentiveness, maintaining faith in difficult times, and recognizing the compassionate power of Jesus. Through their interactions with Jesus, Martha and Mary demonstrate the depth and diversity of genuine faith, enriching the Christian understanding of what it means to follow Christ. The Samaritan woman at the well, John 4. The story of the Samaritan woman at the well, found in John 4, 1:42, is a powerful narrative that highlights Jesus' radical approach to inclusivity, grace, and the breaking of social and cultural barriers. This encounter, rich with theological and practical implications, provides deep insights into Jesus' mission and the nature of true worship. Setting and context. Jesus' encounter with the Samaritan woman takes place in Sychar, a town in Samaria, as he travels from Judea to Galilee. This route through Samaria was unusual for Jews of that time due to long-standing hostilities between Jews and Samaritans. The animosity stemmed from historical, religious, and ethnic differences, making interactions between the two groups rare and often contentious. The meeting occurs at Jacob's Well, a significant historical and religious site for both Jews and Samaritans. Jesus, weary from his journey, sits by the well at noon, a time when few would be drawing water due to the day's heat. The story of the Samaritan woman at the well is a profound narrative that encapsulates key themes of Jesus' ministry: inclusivity, grace, and the transformative power of encountering Christ. Through this interaction, Jesus reveals his identity as the Messiah, teaches the true nature of worship, and demonstrates his mission to reach all people, transcending social and cultural barriers. The Samaritan woman's story continues to inspire believers with its message of redemption, the importance of personal testimony, and the call to worship God in spirit and truth. The woman with the issue of blood and Jairus' daughter, Mark 5:21-43. The intertwined stories of the woman with the issue of blood and Jairus' daughter, found in Mark 5:21-43, showcase Jesus' compassion, power, and the importance of faith. These narratives highlight Jesus' willingness to heal and restore, regardless of social status, and they emphasize the profound impact of faith in receiving God's miracles. Setting and context. The events take place as Jesus is traveling and ministering to the crowds. Jairus, a synagogue leader, approaches Jesus with a desperate plea to heal his dying daughter. As Jesus heads to Jairus' house, a woman suffering from a chronic illness reaches out to him in faith, hoping for healing. Jairus' plea Jairus, a respected leader in the community, falls at Jesus' feet and earnestly begs him to come and heal his daughter, who is at the point of death. Mark 5:22-23. This act of humility and desperation highlights Jairus' belief in Jesus' ability to heal and his willingness to seek help despite his social status. The woman with the issue of blood. As Jesus is on his way to Jairus' house, a woman who has been suffering from a bleeding condition for 12 years comes into the picture. Her condition has rendered her ritually unclean according to Jewish law, isolating her from society and religious practices. She has spent all her money on treatments, but her condition has only worsened. Mark 5:25-26. Her act of faith. Hearing about Jesus' healing powers, the woman believes that if she can just touch his cloak, she will be healed. Despite the crowd pressing around Jesus, she manages to reach him and touch his garment. Immediately, her bleeding stops, and she feels in her body that she is freed from her suffering. Mark 5:27-29. Jesus' response. Aware that power has gone out from him, Jesus stops and asks, "Who touched my clothes?" Mark 5:30. The disciples are puzzled by the question, given the crowd's size. The woman, trembling with fear, comes forward, falls at Jesus' feet, and confesses the whole truth. Mark 5:33. Jesus responds with compassion, addressing her as daughter and affirming her faith. Your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. Mark 5:34. Jairus' daughter. During this interaction, messengers arrive from Jairus' house with the news that his daughter has died, suggesting there is no longer any need to trouble Jesus. Mark 5:35. Jesus, overhearing this, tells Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just believe." Mark 5:36. This statement underscores the central theme of faith. At Jairus' house, upon arriving at Jairus' house, Jesus finds a commotion of people weeping and wailing. He declares that the child is not dead but asleep, which prompts ridicule from the mourners. Mark 5:39-40. Jesus takes only Peter, James, John, and the girl's parents into the room where the child lies. The miracle. Taking the girl by the hand, Jesus says, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Mark 5:41. Immediately, the girl stands up and begins to walk around. The witnesses are astonished, and Jesus instructs them to give her something to eat and to keep the miracle private. Mark 5:42-43. Theological and practical implications. Faith and healing. Both stories emphasize the importance of faith in receiving healing. The woman's belief in Jesus' power, despite her long-term suffering and social isolation, leads to her miraculous cure. Jairus' faith, even in the face of his daughter's death, is affirmed and rewarded with her restoration to life. These narratives illustrate that faith is a crucial element in experiencing God's intervention and miracles. Jesus' compassion and power. Jesus' responses to both the woman and Jairus highlight his compassion and power. He addresses the woman's suffering personally, calling her daughter and acknowledging her faith. His interaction with Jairus demonstrates his authority over death as he brings the dead girl back to life. These actions reveal Jesus' deep empathy and his divine ability to heal and restore. Breaking social and religious barriers. The story of the woman with the issue of blood underscores Jesus' disregard for social and religious barriers. Her condition made her ritually unclean, yet Jesus heals her without concern for the purity laws. This act challenges the existing norms and illustrates the inclusivity of Jesus' ministry, the interplay of public and private faith. The public nature of the woman's healing contrasts with the private setting of Jairus' daughter's resurrection. Jesus' public acknowledgement of the woman's faith serves as a testament to the community. At the same time, the private nature of the girl's healing respects the family's privacy and possibly safeguards Jesus' ministry from premature opposition. This dynamic highlights the different contexts in which faith operates and the diverse ways Jesus meets individual needs. The stories of the woman with the issue of blood and Jairus' daughter provide profound insights into Jesus' ministry, emphasizing the power of faith, the depth of his compassion, and his authority over sickness and death. These narratives demonstrate that Jesus' healing is available to all, regardless of social status or condition, and that faith is a key component in experiencing his miraculous power. The lessons from these stories continue to inspire and encourage believers to trust in Jesus' ability to heal and restore, both physically and spiritually. The Canaanite woman, Matthew 15:21-28. The story of the Canaanite woman, found in Matthew 15:21-28, is a remarkable narrative that highlights themes of faith, perseverance, and Jesus' mission to extend God's grace beyond the boundaries of Israel. This encounter between Jesus and the Canaanite woman reveals significant insights into the nature of faith and the inclusivity of the gospel. Setting and context. The story takes place in the region of Tyre and Sidon, areas outside of Jewish territory known for their predominantly Gentile populations. Jesus' presence in this region signifies his willingness to move beyond traditional Jewish boundaries, both geographically and culturally. The woman's plea. As Jesus and his disciples enter the area, a Canaanite woman approaches him with a desperate plea. She cries out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." Matthew 15:22. Her use of the title Son of David indicates a recognition of Jesus' messianic identity, despite her Gentile background. Jesus' initial response. Surprisingly, Jesus initially does not respond to her plea. This silence is significant, as it sets the stage for the ensuing dialogue and highlights the woman's determination. The disciples, seemingly annoyed by her persistence, urge Jesus to send her away. Matthew 15:23. The dialogue and testing of faith. Jesus finally addresses the woman, stating, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." Matthew 15:24. This response reflects his primary mission to the Jewish people, but also serves as a test of the woman's faith and understanding. The woman, undeterred, comes closer, kneels before Jesus, and pleads, "Lord, help me." Matthew 15:25. Her posture of humility and continued persistence demonstrate the depth of her desperation and belief in Jesus' ability to heal her daughter. Jesus then makes a seemingly harsh statement. "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." Matthew 15:26. This remark, using a common Jewish metaphor that likens Gentiles to dogs, could be interpreted as a rejection. However, it also allows the woman to exhibit her faith. The woman's faith and wisdom. The Canaanite woman's response is both humble and wise. "Yes, it is, Lord. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Matthew 15:27. By accepting the metaphor and cleverly turning it to her advantage, she acknowledges her position while expressing unwavering faith that even a small act of Jesus' power can heal her daughter. Jesus' affirmation and the miracle. Impressed by her faith, Jesus responds positively, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." Her daughter is healed at that moment. Matthew 15:28. Jesus' affirmation highlights the exceptional nature of her faith, which surpasses many of the responses he receives from his people. Theological and practical implications. The inclusivity of Jesus' mission. This encounter underscores the inclusivity of Jesus' mission. Although he initially states his mission is to the lost sheep of Israel, his ultimate response to the Canaanite woman indicates that God's grace and healing power extend beyond ethnic and cultural boundaries. This foreshadows the later expansion of the gospel to all nations. The nature of true faith. The Canaanite woman's story exemplifies true faith characterized by persistence, humility, and trust in Jesus' mercy. Her unwavering belief, despite initial rejection and cultural barriers, highlights the importance of steadfast faith in receiving God's blessings. Testing and growth in faith. Jesus' interactions with the woman can be seen as a test designed to reveal and strengthen her faith. The dialogue challenges her, but her perseverance and insightful response demonstrate a mature and robust faith that Jesus commends. The story of the Canaanite woman in Matthew 15:21-28 is a powerful narrative that illustrates the inclusive nature of Jesus' ministry and the transformative power of persistent faith. Her encounter with Jesus challenges cultural boundaries and reveals the depth of true faith, marked by humility, perseverance, and a profound trust in Jesus' ability to heal and restore. This story continues to inspire believers to approach Jesus with unwavering faith, confident in his mercy and grace that transcend all barriers. The woman caught in adultery. The story of the woman caught in adultery, found in John 8:1-11, is a poignant account that showcases profound aspects of Jesus' character and teachings. Here's an overview of this narrative. Setting and context. The incident takes place in Jerusalem, likely in the temple precincts, early in the morning. Jesus is teaching a crowd when the scribes and Pharisees bring a woman to him who has been caught in the act of adultery. They place her before Jesus and present the situation as a test, seeking to trap him into making a judgment that could be used against him. John 8:1-6. The accusation and Jesus' response. The scribes and Pharisees remind Jesus that according to the law of Moses, such women should be stoned to death and asked for his opinion. Instead of answering directly, Jesus stoops down and writes on the ground with his finger, a gesture that has sparked much speculation over its meaning. John 8:6-7. When they continue to press him for an answer, Jesus stands up and challenges them, saying, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her." John 8:7. This statement turns the tables on the accusers, forcing them to confront their sinfulness and hypocrisy. The departure of the accusers. One by one, beginning with the older ones, the accusers leave, convicted by their consciences and realizing they are not without sin themselves. John 8:9. This gradual departure leaves Jesus alone with the woman. Jesus' mercy and forgiveness. Jesus then addresses the woman, asking her where her accusers are and if anyone has condemned her. When she responds that no one has condemned her, Jesus declares, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, sin no more." John 8:10, 11. In these words, Jesus extends mercy and forgiveness to the woman, while also exhorting her to leave her life of sin. Theological and practical implications, mercy and judgment. Jesus' handling of this situation underscores the balance between justice and mercy. While he does not condone the woman's sin, he demonstrates compassion and offers her a chance to repent and change. Hypocrisy and self-examination. The departure of the accusers highlights the danger of hypocrisy and the importance of self-examination. Jesus' challenge forces them to reflect on their sins rather than focusing on condemning others. Transformation through grace. The woman's encounter with Jesus illustrates the transformative power of grace. His words of forgiveness and guidance offer her a new beginning, emphasizing the possibility of repentance and a changed life. The story of the woman caught in adultery in John 8:1. 11 encapsulates profound lessons about grace, forgiveness, and the challenge of self-righteousness. It reveals Jesus' compassion and wisdom in handling complex moral situations and invites believers to emulate his example of mercy and grace in their own lives. This narrative continues to resonate as a powerful testament to Jesus' teachings on judgment, forgiveness, and the transformative power of encountering God's love. Women at the resurrection. Mary Magdalene emerges again as a central figure in the resurrection accounts. She is notably the first to witness the empty tomb and encounter the risen Jesus, John 20:1-18. Her role as the first witness of the resurrection underscores the importance of her testimony in early Christian belief. Other women. The Gospels also mention other women who went to the tomb early on the first day of the week, including Mary, the mother of James, Salome, and possibly others. Mark 16:1, Luke 24:10. These women discover the empty tomb and receive the angelic message about Jesus' resurrection. Theological and practical implications. Witness to crucifixion and resurrection. The presence of women at these pivotal moments emphasizes their role as faithful witnesses to Jesus' suffering, death, and resurrection. Their testimony becomes crucial in the early proclamation of the gospel and the affirmation of Jesus' resurrection. Courage and faithfulness. Despite the risks and emotional turmoil, these women demonstrate remarkable courage and faithfulness in their commitment to Jesus. They remain steadfast in their support and devotion, even in the face of persecution and danger. Symbolism of inclusion. The inclusion of women as witnesses to the crucifixion and resurrection challenges cultural norms and highlights Jesus' inclusive ministry. In a society where women's testimony was often undervalued, their presence underscores Jesus' affirmation of their significance and equality in bearing witness to the gospel truth. The presence of women at Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection is not merely incidental, but serves to underscore their vital role as witnesses to the core events of the Christian faith. Their courage, faithfulness, and pivotal roles in the gospel narratives highlight the inclusive nature of Jesus' ministry and the profound theological implications of their testimony. Their actions and presence continue to inspire believers to recognize and affirm the essential contributions of women in the spread of the gospel message and the ongoing proclamation of Jesus' resurrection and victory over death. Conclusion. The involvement of women in the crucifixion and resurrection narratives of Jesus is deeply significant and underscores several critical themes in Christian theology and practice. Throughout the Gospels, women are depicted as witnesses to key events surrounding Jesus' death and resurrection, playing pivotal roles that highlight their courage, faithfulness, and unique perspectives. At the crucifixion, Mary, the mother of Jesus, stands at the foot of the cross, bearing witness to her son's sacrifice. Mary Magdalene and other women also remain steadfast, despite the danger and anguish, demonstrating unwavering support for Jesus during his darkest hour. In the resurrection accounts, Mary Magdalene is prominently featured as the first witness to the empty tomb and the risen Jesus. Her encounter with the resurrected Christ underscores the foundational truth of the Christian faith, the victory of life over death, proclaimed through the testimony of a faithful woman. The inclusion of women in these narratives challenges societal norms of the time and emphasizes Jesus' radical inclusivity and affirmation of women as integral to his ministry. Their presence as witnesses to the crucifixion and resurrection affirms their significant roles in the early Christian community and highlights their essential contributions to the proclamation of the gospel. Moreover, the participation of women in these pivotal events reflects Jesus' teachings on equality, compassion, and the value of every individual in God's kingdom. Their courage and faithfulness serve as enduring examples for believers today, encouraging us to recognize and celebrate the diverse and essential roles of women in sharing the message of Christ's love, redemption, and resurrection with the world. Ultimately, the involvement of women in the crucifixion and resurrection narratives illuminates the transformative power of faith, the importance of bearing witness to God's work in the world, and the inclusive nature of God's kingdom, where all are called to participate in spreading the good news of salvation. Their stories continue to inspire and challenge us to live out the principles of justice, mercy, and love exemplified by Jesus Christ.